I've always been fascinated by Russia, the opulence of the Romanovs, so desperately emulating the French royalty, and the severity of the Soviet Union. You can see in the architecture of Red Square the contrast of new and old that characterizes Russia, and just behind Lenin's tomb, you get a sense for the complicated relationship that Russians have with their leaders. This summer, I took my first trip to Russia with my high school buddy Alex. We took the Trans-Siberian Railroad from Moscow to Beijing. Trains are cramped, 4 people to a bunk, and since we did a bad job booking, we never actually shared one. The trip is 8 days long, but we did it over the course of 3 weeks, preferring to get off as often as possible and see something of the country. We had a lot of nights like this, where we met some really interesting Russians and probably drank a little too much vodka. There's also, on the train, just a lot of time to look out the window and see the country slide by. The train stops a handful of times every day, which allows you to get out and stretch your legs and taste Russian pastries, which we found were mostly full of potatoes. I think one of the most valuable lessons that I learned on the train was not to try to keep up with Russians when they're drinking vodka. I also learned that having a hangover on the train is just fucking terrible. As we got further into Siberia, there were less villages and, well, a lot more trees. But we did spend over 2 weeks on Lake Baikal. It's the oldest and deepest lake on Earth, and it gave us a really good opportunity to get out and see some nature.
Is a classic example of big ass bears. You see the big ass toes here, and this is the big slapping zone for when it hits you right in the face. Now, that's why we have these nice pots and pans to bang and make sure they don't come near us. Ladies and gentlemen, here we have something of prehistoric nature. That means prehistory, that means before time, that means it's really old. Take a look at this. See the size of this bird print? That's fucking huge. It must have been a velociraptor or, yeah, that's what it was.
After Baikal, Alex went one way into Mongolia and I went the other towards Beijing. I spent my last 3 days in Russia alone on the train, which gave me a lot of time to reflect on the trip. Overall, it was a really wonderful experience, but I learned a lot of lessons, and if I ever do it again, I think that I'll do some things differently.